ITMS. Just a brief overview of ITMS. Ken does, well, he does a lot of stuff, but basically we're going to talk about forensics and investigations. I think he does some other information security services, compliance, kind of a security grab bag of different things that he's done, but he has a lot of great experience. I think he's got a depth of knowledge and personal experience that he can share with us, and that's interesting. The other piece that we should understand is, I believe, and I don't know if you've been talked to about this or not, Ken, we're going to ask you to be part of our upcoming security roundtable discussion.
Sure, I'd love that.
Yep, so I think we're going to, in the upcoming weeks, we're going to have a security roundtable with myself and Ken and a couple other folks just to talk security issues and answer some of those questions that people have. So that'll be coming up in the next couple weeks. So October being information or cybersecurity month, we want to have kind of a security bent on our presentations and our discussions. So with that said, oh, as always, if you have questions, feel free to ask, or you can put them in the comments or the chat section, and we'll be watching that. And at the end, we'll do a Q&A session, so if anyone have questions for Ken. So with that, Ken, I'll let you take it over and tell us about yourself and about ITMS.
Hey, my name is Ken Romer. I've been in the IT industry since 1997. Started with Computer Sciences Corporation. Was a network administrator there, got hired by, I'm going to talk fast today because I'm on limited time and my presentation normally takes close to 45 minutes. So I know we're limited, so please forgive me for that. I don't normally buzz through things this quick. So from there, went to Marlin Leasing, was a director of IT, started ITMS in 2010 as a part-time business and went full-time 2013. Primarily what we do is cybersecurity related consulting and testing and things of that nature. So that being said, I'm going to jump right into the presentation. And like I said, I'm going to move pretty quick, so please forgive me for that. All right, cybercrime is happening all the time. Basically, the hackers are always out there looking for your data, looking for your information, looking to make money off of you. And one of the reasons it's so prevalent, I don't know how many people out there are old enough to remember, back in the day, you had a modem, you unplugged your telephone, you plugged your modem in, and then when you were done, you unplugged it. Well, now everything has a persistent connection. Every household, every business, even your cell phones. So you're constantly open to exploitation. So it has really made cybercrime a bigger business. And where is the crime coming from? The usual places, you're North Korea, China, Russia, Iran's a big one right now, but it can be right down the street. When I first got interested in this business, Wi-Fi was just coming out. And another thing to show my age, your laptops did not have built-in Wi-Fi. You had to buy one of those cards, slip it in the side. So it was a Cisco presentation, went out, and they talked about how open Wi-Fi was, and I was really surprised. So I went out, bought this card, drove up to a local strip mall, and there was a CPA firm there. And within minutes, I was looking at a folder that said client files. I was like, oh my gosh, this is scary stuff. So it can be across the street is my point. It can be right outside your front door, not just coming from around the world. Why be concerned? Many different reasons. What if you lost your customers' data? What if you lost personal information related to your business, your employees, your own personal information? Suppose you're working on that big project for years and you're getting ready to do a patent or something, and your intellectual property is stolen and it winds up on the internet, and all that work you did for all those years is gone. Reputation, your company reputation, you start losing people's information. How is that going to affect your business? There's also heavy fines involved, and a lot of legal fees can be involved. How strong are you? Basically, how do you know? If you don't know where your weak links are, then you really don't know if you're pretty strong, you're in a good position, or not. What are the points of entry? Email, obviously, social engineering, spear phishing. Example of spear phishing, somebody was doing a pen test one time, and they couldn't get into the company, having a very difficult time. So what they did is they found somebody in the company that was really into stamp collecting. So they created a fake website, created a fake email, and sent the guy an email saying, hey, look at these stamps that we have. My grandfather passed away, left them to me. I want to sell them. Well, of course, the guy clicked the link and he was inside the company within seconds. Drive-by infection, you go to a legitimate website and they have an ad or a piece of their site that's been compromised. You can become infected. USB key malware, this is a real popular one. Basically, you can drop a USB key outside some building. If you really want to get somebody to put it in their computer, say, executive compensation on it or something, and they're going to go right in and look at it. And then that's going to launch some malware on their systems. Just looking across the internet for systems that are vulnerable. There's a lot out there. Wi-Fi compromises, exploiting password reset. I was rebuilding a laptop for my mom, who goes through more laptops than anybody I know. And I got to her AOL account, and I knew her username, which is her email address essentially, but I didn't know her password. It's like, huh. So of course there's a link on there, answer to 3 secret questions. Well, obviously I know her, so I knew all the answers to the questions, and it made it real simple. But what people don't understand is that it would be real easy for somebody to do a little bit of research on somebody and learn what their answers might be. I always recommend, if it asks for your mother's maiden name, give your father's middle name. I mean, you're going to remember that. And just like my favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys. So who's your favorite team? I would put the Eagles. No one who knows me is going to put Eagles in. It's just not going to happen. So little things like that can help. What do they want? Obviously, they want your data. They want your client's data. They want credit information, medical records. Medical records are very, very valuable. And I always ask people, why are the medical records so valuable? You think about it. You go to the doctor, they have your name, address, date of birth, and every doctor I've ever been to asked me for my social security number. Never give it to them. I've even asked them, why do you need it? And they don't even know. They can't say it. So that makes those records very valuable. The credit card companies have gotten very good at shutting down bad action on credit cards pretty quick. But those medical records, if you've got that stuff, that information, you can sell that over and over and over. They also want to build botnets. A botnet is like an army out there where they take over lots of different computers. They don't fully compromise them. They just have them out there as little army drones. So if they want to launch a DDoS, which is a distributed denial of service attack on somebody, they can easily do that from many thousands of computers. It's next to impossible to stop. It's easy money if you do it right. The chances of getting caught are very slim. And something that's come out with the popularity of cyber or cryptocurrency rather is CPU cycle stealing. What they're doing is they're getting into your systems and they're taking 20–30% of your CPUs to basically try and build Bitcoins and things of that nature. Oh, and we can't forget ransomware. I mean, ransomware is probably one of the biggest things out there right now. Mostly they were getting in initially through like phishing attacks or spear phishing, that kind of stuff. But since the advent of COVID, remote desktop connection has become a very, very popular entry point. Most people think, oh, wow, Microsoft has this built in. Let me just throw it up there. Oh, look, now everybody can connect. But it's very flawed. It has lots of issues. So something to be very, very wary of. And you're paying in cryptocurrency, which makes it very difficult to track. What do you do? Well, employee training is a big thing. They're going to be very, usually that's your weak spots is your employees. Another thing is people don't patch their systems on a regular basis. And if you do get hit, what's your DR plan? How do you get back? How do you recover your data? Is your DR plan to pay the ransom? Okay, that might be it, but you might want to look at some other options, because there have been a lot of cases where people have been locked up by the ransomware, and ransomware people did it wrong, and they pay, but the key doesn't work. Not a lot of them do that, but that does happen, and they don't want to do that because then they're not going to pay in the future. Do you have your backups? Have you tested your backups? That's a very important thing. How many times have I heard people say, I've been backing up for years, and when I went to recover something, the tape was broken, or whatever system they have, they didn't really check to make sure it was working. Remove your backups from being online. A lot of people I talk to, they have a remote hard drive or something like that, and they do their backups to that, but it's connected to the network. So if someone gets into your network and can start setting up ransomware and encrypting all your documents, they're going to encrypt your backups as well. So they're going to be useless to you. Another thing I always recommend is do versioning of your backups. Don't overwrite backups. So you might have like a Monday, a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever your system is. Don't overwrite. Keep at least 2 weeks or more, depending on how important the data is and how often it changes. This is one of my pet peeve topics. IoT. The S in IoT stands for security. The P is for privacy. And as we notice, there is no S and there is no P in IoT. So, I mean, it sounds great, and I hear people talk about them, but they're easy to use, simple to set up most likely. They can be very helpful. Yeah, you can unlock a door remotely. You don't have to go into the office to do something, to let somebody in. You can turn on light bulbs, air conditioning, things of that nature. You can gain some productivity gains there, cost savings. Again, they're built for ease of use. Should you use them? Do you really need a light bulb, camera, or whatever connected to the internet all the time? Probably not. Some people might, some people don't. A lot of these devices have come with default passwords and usernames. And some of them don't allow you to change those passwords and usernames. You don't want to get those devices. Obviously, make a strong password. You don't want something that might be exposed to the internet that has a very weak password and is easy to guess. And don't buy used stuff. There was a guy that went into Best Buy, I believe it was, bought a video camera system for his home. Got online, registered, decided he didn't really like it. He took it back like a few days later. A couple months later, he opens up his computer and for whatever reason, logs into that account. He's looking at someone else's house, the inside of someone else's house. That device is still registered to that username and password, as well as whoever re-registered it under their name. Another thing is create a subnet for the IoT devices, meaning separate them from your production network. So one side, I'm moving my hands around, sorry. One side does not talk to the other. That way, if someone does get into your IoT section, they're not getting into your subnet that contains all your production servers. And this is another one of mine. My daughter sent me one of those little Echoes once, about 2 years ago for Christmas. And I stared at it in the box for about 3 weeks. And I said, I can't open this up. I'm going to send it back to you. I cannot have this on my network. And people say, well, it's only listening for the keyword. And if you think about it logically, if it's waiting for the keyword, it's got to be listening to you. And it's got to be listening to everything around you. And shut down your inbound and outbound connections. If it doesn't need to go outbound, shut it down. If it doesn't need inbound connections, shut them down at your firewall. And here's what a lot of people don't understand. These devices are computers with an operating system on them. They're not just a light bulb, it's an actual computer. And a lot of these devices will never get security updates, will never get firmware updates. So be aware of what you're putting on your network and that you buy products that might be a little more expensive, but you're going to get security updates, you're going to get OS updates, firmware updates, and all those other things. And again, they are built for convenience and ease, not security. It's kind of like when Microsoft first came out with NT, and you reverse that with Novell, if anybody goes back that far. Novell was very hard to set up, and everything was locked down, and you had to open things up. Where Microsoft put out this server that everything was wide open, but it was easy to use. The average person could put an NT server up without a problem. IoT hacks. 2 hackers appeared to create a zombie bot network, mostly through light bulbs and stuff like that. A solar panel company was hacked through their IoT stuff. They use a Trojan network to spy on you. Here's an interesting one. This lock is very similar to that video problem that the guy bought the equipment. Somebody bought a used lock off Craigslist or something like that. Well, what they found out is that lock always stayed registered to the original person who registered it online. And whoever they ever gave access to still had access to that lock. And the beauty of it was it had some GPS system built into it, so it could tell you exactly where that lock was. So if anybody wanted to come to your house, open up the door, you come in, take all your stuff, and be very kind and lock the door on the way out. So nothing else would happen to your house. Information collected by those assistants, we'll call them, can be used as evidence in a case. They're starting to subpoena that information, and police are actually getting that type of stuff from those devices. Police got data from a smart meter, water meter, about some guy who potentially would have committed murder. What they were looking at is he said he filled his hot tub up in the afternoon, but the data they were able to get off the smart meter showed that he did it at 2 in the morning, not 2 in the afternoon. So that's kind of pointing him out as lying. And your fridges. I mean, do you need a fridge that's talking to the internet that could possibly be compromised and then just sniff the network for credentials? Next attacks, cell phones. Cell phones are always connected to the internet for the most part. If you have a smartphone, it's going to be a big thing. In fact, it's already starting. They already have a term called smishing now, which is you're getting text messages with those unkind links in them that they're trying to get you to click. Medical equipment. I had a friend in the business that they were doing a hospital, and they were testing some of their devices, and they came across this one, and they just got a bad feeling about it. And they backed out. They went to the director of IT, and he, very adamantly said, no, they're all good. You're safe. They went back in, and within 5 minutes, he's calling them, freaking out that was machine they were in was a laser, operated a laser for surgery, and they were in the process of using it. So think about that. Will it be an assassination through medical equipment and IoT type devices? And we talked a little bit about appliances. This is good. You can rent or buy a botnet. So if you want to have your own DDoS company, you can buy them, you can rent them as needed. In addition to that now, you can buy malware as a service. There are companies out there that will do all the work. All you basically need to do is get a list of email addresses that you want to send this stuff to, and it'll do everything else. And they get a piece of the action. They don't get involved in doing any hacking or anything like that. And they have the emails, they just provide this service, this software, and off you go. And then all you got to do is pay a portion of the proceeds, which is real easy to do. Okay, where do we start? I like to start with the computer policies. Computer usage policy. If you don't have a computer usage policy in place, you can get into a lot of trouble by firing somebody. Somebody was caught at work on an adult website. Seems like common sense that you shouldn't be on a site like that on your work computer during work hours. However, he sued them because they fired him, and he won because he's like, no one ever told me I couldn't do that. Data security. What's your data security policy? What do you do with your data? What data needs to be more secure? Not all your data is as important as some of the other data is. Password controls. I'm a big believer in the length of the password more than so much the complexity. The longer it is, the harder it's going to be. And to date, the de facto default is still 8 characters for most companies, 8 characters and down. So most of your people doing your brute forcing are going to go 8 characters and down. If you can get your people to do 12 characters, which is real simple, put 2 numbers on the front of whatever their current password is and 2 different numbers on the back, now you have 12-character password. It's the exponential challenge of breaking into that is a lot harder. And unlike what you see in the movies where you get the computers and they got this long password and they break down the first character, then they get the second character and the third, and so on. It doesn't work that way. You either get the whole thing at once or you get nothing. If you have a 100-character password and you get 99 of the characters correct, but 1 is wrong, the system doesn't say, your last character is wrong. It just goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So don't believe what you see on TV. Physical computer room security access. I wouldn't let the CEO of the company that I used to work for have access to the computer room. They don't need access. He didn't like that. He didn't like that his VPs couldn't get access, but there was no reason for them to be in there. And anytime he wanted to do a tour, he wanted to go in there with his big cup of coffee. I'm like, you can't have liquids in there, and he couldn't understand why. Next one is very important, termination of access. In many, many companies, there is no termination of access policy. IT needs to know that someone is being let go. I was in situations where someone was gone for 2 weeks before I was notified to terminate their access. That's a problem. They still have access to their email. They might still have a cell phone. They might have a laptop at home. They might have a VPN connection back to the office. All these things that we don't know should have been done away with. Data backup. How do you do your backups? Where do you do your backups? How often do you do them? Change control is a very, very important one. And what the change control policy deals with, we're going to make a change to the systems, whether it's hardware, software, firmware, whatever the case may be. Any end user involved in using these systems should be aware that a change is happening. And also, the big part of the change control is something went wrong. Okay, something went wrong. What do we do to get back? What's your backup plan? Could be as simple as removing the patches. Could be as simple as uninstalling software. Or it could be as difficult as doing a full restore from scratch. Business continuity plan. I mean, I think everybody kind of sees the need for something like that in today's world. How many people got caught flat-footed with no ability to remotely work? Patch management policy. How do you do your patches? When do you do your patches? Do you do patches right away, immediately? Some companies like it that way. Some companies are a little more cautious. Maybe you have a policy that says on the client side, we do half immediately and half in maybe a day or two. Maybe on the server side, it's like 25%, 25%, and breaking it down. Just how should you approach it and how does it get done? Automate it as much as possible. And of course, your workforce training never ends, educating people on what they should be looking for. Okay, what else can you do? Hire a pen tester, have them look at your external network, see if they can find flaws. We've found all kinds of things. We've found things where people thought they were doing their patches. They had automated patching going on. They swore up and down they were doing the patches. I said, we've got remote code execution sitting out there on your servers exposed to the internet. And sure enough, they went back in. The system they were using was reporting that it patched the servers, but it never did. So they would have never known that. I ran into another guy that had an FTP server out there, read, write to anonymous. It's like, you know, anybody in the world can read and write to your server. He's like, I don't care. I was like, well, they can put anything on there and you're backing it up. I was like, I don't care. I was like, okay. Well, what if Snowden put his files on there? I don't care. I was like, okay, let me get to the extreme here. What if someone puts child porn of some sort on your server, you're backing it up, the FBI is going to come in, take all your equipment, everything, all your backups, you're out of business overnight. It took that extreme for him to go like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. No, you shouldn't. Then you need to do the same thing on your interior. Look for your systems, have them looked at. You know, are they all up to date? Is everything being patched properly? There's a lot of compliance requirements. HIPAA is a medical. SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, that's for the publicly traded companies. PCI, payment card industry, Federal Reserve Board, SEC, Security Exchange Commission. All these organizations have requirements on compliance, on security. And I will tell you with HIPAA, if you can't show that you're doing some due diligence for a company of your size, they're going to nail you to the wall in fines, and you probably will be out of business. And they don't care if you're a commercial company or if you're a nonprofit doing whatever research. The cost, you can just read these real quick. There's $2 million from HIPAA's cost, $2 million there, $100,000, a lot of hefty fines. How many people can really afford these fines because they're not doing anything or they're not following reasonable protocol to take care of the problems? I hear this all the time. I'm too small. I'm not Home Depot. I'm not Target. I'm too small. No one's going to bother me. Why should I worry? Well, I always say to them, these people didn't start in what I call the major leagues. They didn't start at the show. They started in smaller companies and worked their way up. Why? There's less security on smaller companies. There's less concern on smaller companies. They think they're too small. They're not worried about it as much. So they're very easy to get to. Another thing I hear all the time, I have cybersecurity insurance. Well, these companies are starting to push back. And a lot of times they only cover a portion of what you're going to be charged. So they're pushing back. They're saying, we're not going to pay. Did you read your terms and conditions on page 389, paragraph 7, where it says you have to do testing and you have to have policies and training and all those other things? Oh, I never saw that. Well, we're not going to pay. Insurance companies are in the business of collecting premiums, not paying for claims. So keep that in mind. Moving on here, this is an example of a phishing attack I did for a client. This was obviously right after the Super Bowl where the Broncos won. And I sent this out, and Peyton, just a simple Peyton Manning horrific car accident. Click here for updates. And everybody jumped on it. People were clicking on it like crazy. But when I do these, they have much slicker stuff available now that'll do this really clean and make it look much more real. This is obviously coming, if you see on the left-hand side here, it's coming from ESPN_com at outlook.com. Obviously not coming from ESPN. And if you hover over the link, you're going to see that weird link that it's really going to. So lots of obvious reasons that this email is probably not legitimate. So keep that in mind. And people still clicked on it. I did one year that very similar, looking very similar, but it was from supposedly their HR department, and it wasn't. And it was right in your first week of February, and it dealt with W-2s. I said, your W-2's wrong. If you don't click here to get your new W-2, the IRS is going to charge you $10,000. I actually had people email me back on that one saying, the link's not working. I said, oh my gosh. If I was really a bad guy, I'd be like, okay, let's jump on a call here and see how we settle this, and take control of their desktop. And again, I do apologize for the speed of this presentation, but I do want to get through as much information as possible. I'd like to show a short demo. Now, this demo is with a product called Metasploit. It's been around for 1 million years. I believe it's owned by Rapid7 now. It's still maintained out there. It's still a very valuable product, but it's old technology. It's not the latest. It's not the greatest. They have point and click stuff now to make it really easy. But basically what we did this in a lab, and we're going to look at one of these exploits. The second one down is a Samba. If you're not familiar with Samba, it's basically like a Windows share that allows Windows and Unix and Linux to share files back and forth so they can communicate with each other and see each other's shares in the same fashion. So we found this exploit here, and this is the synopsis. Remote code execution is available through this system. All right. So I'm going to have to switch shares here. So I'm going to stop sharing this. And did that stop?
Yep, the share stopped.
Okay. A little problem here. I'll close that. Back here. Close this. Okay. So this is an example of how to use Metasploit. And this is my attacking server here that we're looking at now.
You can't see your screen though.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't share. My bad.
Gotta get my mic down.
Okay. So share screen. Screen 2.
There we go.
You're good? Okay.
Yep.
So this is my attacking server that we're looking at here. And it's got an IP address, ends in 101. So I just wanted to mention that. And then let me start this demo. And what we're going to do is we're going to launch the product Metasploit. And you'll see it's very command line driven. And that takes a minute to fire up. It doesn't fire up right away. But you can see this is 101. This IP address ends in 101. That's my attacking server. I'm going to show you this is the server that we're going to attack. So this is the victim. That server ends in 102 in its IP address. All right, so back to the attacking server. Metasploit's open. Now to make this easy, I just copied and pasted all these commands in. So we're using the Samba exploitation. That's our flaw that we're going after. So we copy that in, paste. Now we're going to have to set the payload. And the payload is what happens after I get in. And what we're going to do here is we're going to open up a reverse shell. So if everything works properly, we should be looking at a reverse shell of the computer we're attacking. Once we set that, we have to set out the remote host. So we'll punch in their IP address. Even though these are all internal addresses, it can be done just as easily across the internet. So there's the 102. That's our victim address. Now, what port do we need to use? Well, Windows sharers and Samba use 445. So we have to set a remote port that we're going to go after. And then lastly, we have to tell them where to send that reverse shell back to. Who's the local host that we want to return the shell back to if it works? And that would be the 101 IP address. All right, so again, keep in mind, this is not the latest and greatest products on the market. This is just to give you a flavor for how long this is going to take, how easy it might be to do, or how hard it might be to do. So we type in our command, hit exploit, and we get a blinky light. Now, did it work? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Let me see, let's do a ifconfig, which will tell us what our IP address is. Our IP address on that window is 102. So we are actually on that with root privilege right now on a remote server. And here we go, just to give you an example, that's 102. So back to my window here. And what can we do? Okay, so now we've connected to this server. We have a terminal open. So let's take a look at the directories. I put a directory on there with my initials, KCR. So I'm just going to flip over to the other machine just to make sure, am I on a different device? Am I on a different server? Like I get to the root directory, do my LS, there's no KCR directory on that system. So just an example, two different examples, obviously the IP address and the directory structures are different. So we know we're on that server. So if you're the bad guy, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the etc directory. And why are you going there? Because in there are some files that you can really use. You can get the PASSWD file, which is your password file. And you also grab what's called the shadow file. And between those two files, you can run applications that will crack the passwords. So we've got full compromise of this machine, and we're going to get full compromise of all the passwords that are on that machine. So we won't even need to use this Metasploit exploit anymore. We'll be able to connect in other fashions. Or we'll be able to connect to other servers, because if you find a root, when you get the root password, they probably reuse that on several different machines. Most people don't change their root or admin passwords between boxes. But that's the quick little demo. I just wanted to give you a flair for what that might look like and how real simple that is, even with Metasploit. So that kind of wraps up my presentation. Again, I apologize for the speed, but I wanted to get all that in before we wrapped it up for the day.
Thanks,
Very
Ken.
quick. Sure.
I have a couple of questions if you have time.
Sure, sure.
Well, the first one is, have you heard about, I heard a rumor, and I don't know if you've heard it too, but about a bill that's actually going through Congress to talk about fines against businesses who pay ransoms for ransomware.
Yes, it is illegal to send money overseas. So that's already in place. So if you're sending money to foreign countries, yeah, that's technically already a crime. Have they enforced that against anybody? I don't really know. But you could find yourself in a lot of trouble for paying a ransom.
Right, right. We have one from the group here. When you are in, so I'm assuming based on your demo, once you're in, can you copy files to your own computer?
Yes, yes. You copy them down to your own computer.
I had another question myself. So in past lives, I've been involved with HIPAA and things like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I know that within HIPAA, they've paid, I kind of think of it as a target. They've paid close attention to large hospitals and hospital medical systems and those things. Do you see a trend, or do you see it happening in the future where closer attention is paid to like smaller cases, like maybe senior homes that maybe have HIPAA data, not senior home, but senior communities that have HIPAA related data, or even like those kind of smaller doctor groups, those types of things? Do you see
Yeah,
them ramping? By them, I mean government or audit
right.
paying more attention to those, because I know the focus has been on kind of the big providers.
Yes, they absolutely are. And I have a lot of clients that are nonprofit organizations. They might be drug rehab places, alcoholism, depression, things like those. And about 4 years ago, we never got a lot of nonprofit business. And all of a sudden, they realized HIPAA was coming down on them pretty hard. And these are small organizations.
Uh-huh.
Some are very small, some are medium sized, but they're all scared now that if they can't show they're doing their due diligence, that they're going to get fined out of existence.
Because one of the things I run into is, the false sense of security was, we're small enough, nobody cares about us.
Well, think about it. Even if you go down to the home user, they're thinking, oh, no one's going to bother me. But what if someone got ransomware on a lot of people's home computer? On there is their entire life. They might have all their pictures, all their documents, everything. No, they're not going to get millions of dollars for that, but they might pay $500 to get it back.
Right.
If you do 5 of those a day, that's pretty good money per day.
So I guess one of my other questions, and probably I guess my last one, is, so what's the most common post-event engagement that you are asked, that people come to you and say, hey, can you help me? So something happens. So what's the most common thing that you are involved in?
The most common thing would be they want to know how they got in. So, and I say, well, you pretty much have to go and scour your log files. We don't get involved in that end too much. We're more on the proactive side. But I do work with a lot of partners that would get involved in that. And they'll just go through log files and log files and log files and looking for things that aren't correct. And if they're a good hacker, they probably erased most of the log files after they left. You may never know how they got in.
Right. Okay. Very good. Does anybody else are there any other questions for Ken? All right. Well, Ken, thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting information. Haley, are you around?
I so am. 1 second.
She materializes. Kind of like Jeannie.
Yeah.
Ken, I need a.
Well, I just admitted how old I am, because very few of us probably know who Jeannie is. Okay. All right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Borrowed. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Ken.
I can see it.
All right. Here we go.
What are we spinning for?
Oh, yeah. I suppose that's helpful. But hold on 1 second, because it's going to be really loud here.
Oh, no, that guy wins. There goes the neighborhood.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. There you go.
All right. Sorry, Ken. Now can you tell them what they won? What he won?
Okay. Basically, what I'm offering is a single IP address test that we'll do from the internet, testing to see if you're secure or not. I would suggest picking out something that you're not 100% sure is in good shape, and we'll take a look at it for you.
Okay.
And generate a report out of that.
Cool. Very cool. Very good.
The one time I wanted to win, I see.
It's a vast conspiracy against Raj. Well, I will say though, Ken, when you were talking about the IoT thing, and I won't divulge the names of the innocent, but somebody who many of us know, some probably some of us know him better than we want to, but somebody that we know actually had a home thermostat hacked. Mm-hmm. So he had some weird stuff going on, got up, looked at it, and there's code scrolling across it. But yeah, so his home, and he called our local energy provider, no, we're not doing anything, whatever. So yeah, so he actually had.
There's a casino out there that got hacked through a thermostat thermometer in this big fish tank they had displayed out in the front of the hotel. And they got in and they got out, I don't know, 30 gigs of high roller data. It took them a long time to get it out, but by the time they found out that what was going on, a lot of data had just left the building and never come back.
Right. Yep. And that, I mean, the thing is that you have to be vigilant. I think that's a good message, is that you have to be vigilant, and security is a journey, not a destination, you know, because it just isn't, you're never done. You're just not done. So anyway, any other questions? Very good. Well, thank you very much, Ken, for your time today. Good presentation. Very interesting stuff.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. Nope. Very good. We'll have
if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out and contact me.
Do you have a website?
Yes, I do. It's itms.us.com.
Okay. Very good. So you can check that out if you have questions or anything, or as always, ping me. We can get you in contact with Ken. Not a problem. Again, thank you, sir. Thanks, everybody. We have some good presentations coming up, security, and I believe we have one on Teams coming up too. So thank you very much. Have a good week. Be safe, everyone.